You want to travel with your dog on a flight, but you have more questions than answers. I have traveled with my previous and current dog on commercial flights for 6 years. I am a frequent traveler and have experienced all the hiccups, the would-be problems, and questions from the airline and TSA staff. I'll cover everything you need to know from A to Z. Once you know the answers and your dog and you are fully prepared, the stress is gone and you can enjoy your flight. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't had a problem with the dog. I'll endeavor to cover all the situations that come up that are less than ideal, so you are fully prepared with no surprises. Stay with me. Are you interested in a small dog with big personality who's almost a non-shedder? How about a dog who is the perfect little companion you can take everywhere, lovable, adorable, cuddly, and loves you with all their little heart? Would you like to learn about the Chi-Chi breed from an owner's experience? Then this channel is for you. You ready to go? In this video, I'm going to use United Airlines as my carrier. Not everything I say is going to be specific to United Airlines because I've flown other carriers, and they are all just a little bit different. Before you make your flight reservation, know the rules for the airline you are traveling. Carefully read the airline carrier's website regarding pet travel. I suggest you have the restrictions about airline travel printed from the airline's own website with you when you travel. I've been told numerous things when checking in at the gate by airline personnel that were absolutely not true. I've had to pull out my printed copy to prove to them what their own website says about pets. And just to prepare you, airline check-in personnel do not specialize in pet travel. If you have any questions that are not covered on the website, the airline usually has personnel who specializes in their pet travel policies. So when you're making the reservation, be sure to tell them you will have a small dog with you. Forgetting this one step could be the thing that causes you to be denied boarding with your dog. United Airlines, for example, has a limit on the number of dogs that can travel in cabin per flight. If they already have reservations for the max amount of pets, you will need to reschedule for another flight. They also have a size and weight limit for the dog, and you can get by with a dog that's a pound or so over the limit, but you cannot get through the check-in if your dog is too big for the size carrier that airline allows. The check-in counter personnel have the right to deny your pet simply due to the fact they are too large for the carrier. Most airlines say the dog should be able to stand up and turn around in their carrier. Unless you have a Yorkie or a Chihuahua or a teacup breed, that isn't always doable. However, your dog should be able to lie down and sit comfortably in the carrier. Also, your dog should be calm, not barking or whining or scratching in the carrier. Next, you need to have the right dog carrier. The Snoozer brand is the one I use. It's just like a regular roller bag. I've seen other brands that look and function like mine, but I don't know how sturdy they are. Full disclosure, I did have to replace the front wheels after using it for 5 years, but that was after a minimum of 24 legs per year for 5 years, which is 120 flights. Those 4-wheel carriers that look like a regular bag but have 4 wheels on each corner, they're rectangular shape, I would not suggest using those. If you're in a hurry to get where you're trying to go in the airport and you're walking fast, those carriers tend to flip. So mine is like a regular roller bag. As I said, it has the 2 wheels on the back and the handle extends, and it just walks at your speed. I've had to rush with it without a problem. Are you tired, honey? Are you falling asleep? And the carrying kind of travel bag is really no better because it just gets cumbersome and heavy. I would never buy a carrier bag that didn't have wheels. One of the big benefits of the snoozer bag too is that you can fold out the straps on it and make it a backpack bag if you need it to be. And it also has a bar in the middle that allows you to push the top down just a little bit if the seat happens to be a different distance from the floor, the seat in front of you, and that just makes it easier too. And I'll talk more about the bag later. And I would suggest not to let them be approached or pet or allow kids to play with your pet while they are in their travel bag, because that is their safe zone. And have extra supplies in your dog carrier that you may need for unexpected events, like a collapsible dog bowl for water or food in case of a late flight or an unexpected layover. All of your dog's meds should be in there, an extra leash, a potty pad in the bottom of the carrier in case the dog has an accident, small training treats to chew on, or maybe a nylabone. And you'll find out why you need those last two items later in this video. Get your dog comfortable with being in the carrier. You can use a treat to lure your dog inside the carrier and praise when they do that. Repeat this a few times until your dog can calmly be inside. And some dogs, like my current dog Kaya, who's 2 years old, just don't like being in the carrier at first. She can sometimes be restless and whine, and here's some ideas to help with that. Make sure your dog gets enough exercise before they're asked to spend time in the carrier. Some dogs just don't like it, and that's when you'll need to ask your veterinarian for something that will make them sleep. Just be sure you have your dog take some of that medicine a week or so before the flight to make sure it works for them, because some of those meds can have the opposite effect on your dog and just get them jazzed up. Most of the time you'll not have to use medicine for an adult dog after they are used to traveling in their bag. Next, have the proper pet vaccination paperwork. You can use a printed form from your veterinarian showing that all your dog's vaccinations are up to date. I usually print a new one each time I travel so that any additional shots my dog has had since the last travel time are there. The main concern most airlines have is that the rabies shot is current. And as long as you have the required shots that all dogs need, including the rabies, you should be okay. On the day of your flight, make sure your dog gets a walk or some form of exercise to get the wiggles out. You can also let your dog walk beside you on a leash in the airport. That's not against the rules. But if you're uncomfortable with this, just make sure your dog gets a walk at home before you leave the airport. And trust me, this can make all the difference in your dog's behavior amid the hustle and bustle of the airport, because it just excites them. Most airports have relief stations set up for your dog to have one last chance to go potty before the flight. Be sure you are familiar with where they are located so you won't be late. Most airports have online maps that show you where to find them. Clearing security. This is usually the most stressful part of the trip, because you don't want to bottleneck the security line trying to get organized and not have your dog run off or cause some kind of a problem. The best advice I ever got from a fellow traveler about traveling with a pet, well, here it is. Be bag free so you can have 100% focus on your dog and their carrier. I check bags and only wear a backpack, and I have the dog and the carrier for boarding. This is so much less cumbersome. You'll be asked to put your bags and the dog's carrier on the belt for x-ray. You will then go through a walk-through scanner with your dog on a leash and in your arms. And it's not uncommon to have your hands wiped down so TSA can check for gunpowder residue on your hands. I'll tell you a little story. My husband was traveling and he packed a bag that he had taken a week or two before on a hunting trip, and he'd had guns and ammunition in it. He didn't think anything of it. He works for the airline. So he packed that bag. He just needed a small travel bag, and he packed that bag, and when he was pulled out of the line for a random check for gunpowder on his hands or anything like that, they found some. I thought he wasn't going to make that flight. He was pulled aside, asked a jillion questions, taken into another room. It was horrible. So this is kind of off the topic, but don't take a bag you've taken hunting with you. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now we're going to move on to at the gate area where you're going to board your flight. Be sure your dog is securely in the carrier before you're asked to board the flight. It should fit under the seat in front of you, and it will stick out a little bit beyond that seat, but that's okay. Depending on the aircraft, not all seats have the same clearance from the floor. This is another reason I like the snoozer bag, because it has a metal bar, like I said, that can be removed so you can clear the bars under the seat in front of you. It squishes down a little bit. It can also be put in under the seat, wheels first or handle first, and still give you the quick access to your dog through the zipper if you need to stick your hand in there and calm them. During the flight, your furry friend needs to stay inside their travel carrier throughout the entire flight. Some airlines may allow you to unzip the bag so you can quickly reach in and comfort your dog. One flight attendant on one flight said you absolutely cannot unzip that bag. And another flight attendant on another flight said, well, you can unzip the bag. And another said, we appreciate if you keep your dog calm and quiet, and if that's what it takes, you can quickly unzip the bag to comfort your dog. Some travelers are allergic to dogs. Some are scared of dogs, and some just don't want to deal with your dog possibly whining or barking. If any of these are the case in your flight, talk with your flight attendant to reseat either you or the other person. For the takeoff and landing, I've only had trouble once when Kaya was a puppy during a takeoff. Her ears were starting to build pressure and close up, and it was bothering her, and I gave her a small training size treat. Sometimes I'll give her a Nylabone, and that's why I suggested you put those last two items in your pet carrier. Just so you know, traveling with your pet is rather expensive. It costs anywhere from $100 to, I'd say, $125, maybe $100, as much as $150 on some airlines per leg. So if you're going, let's say, from Denver to Seattle, that's $100 or whatever they charge. Then Seattle to back to Denver, that's another $100 or $125. Again, whatever your airline charges. So that's something to keep in mind. It's very nice to have your pet with you. We travel back and forth from Friday Harbor, Washington, where I am now, to Denver, where we live the other half of the year, and we just couldn't go without our dog. She's part of our family. So it's always good to have your dog ready and able to travel whenever you need to. And I sure hope this video answered some of your questions. I did put a link to the snoozer carrier on Amazon in the description. I will leave some other suggestions of videos and playlists on my channel that you might want to watch. Thank you for giving me your time. I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.